Oh my god, I've just realised I'm so thirsty and I haven't got any water to drink. This glass is, wait, it's got maybe drip. No, it's dripless. Hi all, thanks for coming to this Aim High Live. Normally I do science stuff, but today I'm going to do this one on who really runs this country. Which is it these dogs? um, yeah, thanks so much for coming. For some of you, this might be the first time. If this is the first time, this just ask questions whenever you want, and we'll see where this goes. So I'm going to do it about who runs the country, because I think it's really cool. And even though I would normally do science stuff like these dogs, hey everyone, there's loads of people here. H Fisher's here, Pumpkin Mustard's here, Leonard is here, Max is here, Roz is here, Maddie's in as well. Thanks so much for coming back, guys. Angel is also here. Yes, so today I'm going to do who really runs this country, which is going to be kind of politics, but the reason why I'm going to explain it is because I just don't like. When I found out about it, I was like, it's not. The system is not at all how I thought it would be. So I'm going to talk you through it because it's pretty cool. H. Fisher's saying Boris runs the country. So Boris, that obviously is quite powerful, but he's not like, it's nowhere near that simple. And it's good that it's not that simple, because if Boris literally ran everything, then we would have a country that would be like a dictatorship. And then if someone really, really awful got into power, then they could just lock up everyone who tries to oppose them, and basically turn the country into a nightmare, and we'd have a situation that could be like Nazi Germany again or something like that. So yes, that's why it's good that Boris doesn't completely run the country, and that's why it's good that these dogs are playing a really important part in running the country. Thanks, dogs. So right, let's get going. Yeah, again, for those who are joining late or for the first time, this is Aim High Live. This one's going to be about who really runs this country. These are happening every day, and loads of them in like science and other stuff. Like tomorrow I'm doing one called How to Commit Fraud and Get Away with It, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, this one's on politics, which is weird for me because I don't normally do politics. Bailey is saying that today they x-rayed a person who had swallowed some magnets, and it reminded them of the live that we did the other day. I did a live a few days ago about how dangerous it is to eat magnets, because if you eat a couple of magnets a little distance apart from one another, then one might get ahead of the other one in your digestive system and snap together, and absolute nightmare. So don't eat magnets, delicious as they may be. Okay, right, yes. So which dog is in charge? Do you guys know? So before we talk about who runs this country, let's talk about the dog country, because that's the only country that anyone really cares about. So who is in charge of who runs the dog pack? Which dog is in charge of the pack of dogs? Pumpkin Master's saying that the leader of the dog pack will often walk at the back to make sure none of the other dogs fall behind. I did not know that. That is such a nice thought. And Max is saying the matriarch. And okay, so yeah, so there will normally be a dominant dog in charge, and it can actually be a male or a female. But something that is quite interesting about dog packs, which I wanted to talk to you about it first, is that sometimes there isn't one dominant dog. Sometimes there'll be multiple dominances like this. So let's say this dog, which we'll just give a top hat, could be dominant over this dog with a monocle. And so this one dominates this dog, and then this dog might dominate this dog with like a kind of propeller baseball cap thing. And then this dog might then dominate this dog, who has a nose ring. And then this dog might dominate this dog, and so on. And it actually can go around in a total circle so that all of the dogs dominate one another, which is kind of weird, and it kind of means that no dog is actually completely in charge, and that can happen in dog packs. Question here before I go into the who really runs this country, which is this: what do you guys reckon? African dogs will sometimes sneeze. They'll sometimes get into a group and then they'll sneeze at one another. Now, sneezing in a dog normally means that that's them saying, like, I'm playing with you. So if a dog is sneezing at you, it's like, I may be looking like I'm fighting, but I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just playing. That's why dogs like sneeze out the nose. But African dogs use sneezing for something else. What do they use it for? Why do African dogs sneeze at one another? Oh, can't see what's underneath there. What do you guys reckon? So yeah, Ben's saying herd immunization, maybe. Maddie's saying voting, Pumpkin Master saying Morse code, Roz is saying voting, Lily's saying voting. Did I talk about this on another live? I might have done. Loads of you are getting this absolutely spot on. I have a dog and he comes to my face and sneezes on me. That's H. Fisher. That's because he likes hanging out with you. He wants to play with you. Dogs that sneeze on you are just saying, I am playing with you. Because there's a lot of pepper. Okay, Miz is saying I did it in a past live. Right, that's why everyone's getting it right. Yeah, okay, African. So loads of people remember African dogs sneeze at one another to vote. So genuinely, like, African dogs will sometimes have something they all need to decide on, and they will use sneezing to vote on the decision, which is totally mad. Anyway, right. So let's do it. I'm going to talk to you about who really runs this country. We're going to figure out who's really in charge. Now, in the UK and in loads of countries that now have a power system that's based on the UK, all the power is split into 3 branches. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to separate them out like this. Does anyone know what these 3 branches are called? What are the names of these 3 branches? Now, they've got quite complicated names, but then the things within them you'll find really recognizable. But does anyone know what any of the branches of power are called, or the columns of power, or the pillars of power, whatever you want to call it? 3 different trees of power, as H. Fisher's saying. That would also work. And Rido's saying hi. You're on my climate. Oh yeah. So Rido's saying hi from the climate change stream this morning. I did one on tipping points this morning, which you'll be able to watch back on the website when it goes up in a couple of days' time. Okay, so Lily's saying House of Lords, House of Commons. Yes. Ben's saying the Crown. Yes. Max is straight in there with executive and legislative. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, right. These branches of power have quite horrid names, and I'm just going to write them down now, and then we'll explain what each of them means. So don't be put off by the fact that these names are horrible. Executive is one of the branches, and then the middle branch we're going to call the legislative. I'm so bad at spelling. I'm a bit dyslexic, so I was super slow at spelling things. Legislative, and then the last one, which nobody got, is called the judicial, or the judiciary branch. Anyway, don't worry about this yet. First, we're going to talk about what they are. Okay, executive branch. This is the executive of the country. Who is the executive of the UK? So we'll do this country first, although this is true for loads of other countries. What do you guys think? Okay, so Lily's coming straight in with the Queen. Cool. Okay, so the Queen is the executive of our country, and that means that they are the head of state. So we're going to call it the head of state. Head of state. So in the UK, it's the Queen. Who is this going to be in? So H. Fisher's saying Sadiq Khan. So Sadiq Khan is, if that's, I think, because yeah, Sadiq Khan was the wait, is he still the mayor of London? I've lost track of whether he's still the mayor of London. But anyway, yeah, Sadiq Khan was the mayor of London. But that's a different thing. We won't actually go to him because he's just in charge of one city in the UK, and we're going to look at the whole country. So the head of state is the Queen, who has a crown that she must wear at all times. And it's quite weird that we've got a Queen who's the head of state, but there are various reasons why we've kept it that way, as mad as it might seem. Miz saying still the mayor of London. God, I'm so not up to date with who the mayor of London is. Right, okay, so yeah, the Queen is the head of state, and here is a picture of the Queen enjoying a New Zealand haka, which look at that smile on her face. Anyway, I'm glad. Like, would anyone here like to be the Queen or the King of England? Because I would not be up for that. What do you guys think? Like, who would actually like to be the Queen or the King? And also, I'm seeing some things coming in here saying that any country that's part of the Commonwealth will also keep their head of state as the Queen. So you've got countries like Australia and New Zealand and so on that still have their executive of that country is the Queen of England, which is kind of bonkers. But it works in this weird way, and that's why they keep it. So the head of state, most people are saying no, but Jasmine's saying yes. Jace is right. It'd be rubbish to be the Queen. No Mackies for the Queen. And Kieran, don't worry that you're late. We're just getting started on who runs this country. So we're just talking about the executive branches, which is one of the three branches of power. So the head of state is the Queen. Who is the head of state in the US? I saw one answer up the top, but I missed it. It's gone off the top of the page. Who's the head of the state? Who's the head of state in the US? Okay, so Trump, exactly. So the president of the US is the head of state. Now, you might have wondered, why does the UK not have a president? It's because we have the Queen instead. So the president is the head of state. Now, the Queen, technically, if she wants, has the power to take us to war. So theoretically, the Queen could be like, right, we're going to war with this place, and then the country will then go to war, because she's the head of state, and so she is responsible for all the kind of very rapid decisions that need to be made. In theory, like in actual practice, she doesn't do any of this, but in theory, she is in charge of all the rapid, like important decisions that have to be made, that they theoretically go through her. So this is kind of bizarre. I'm going to leave that there for a moment and then come back. So yeah, I've written Queen here, but obviously if it was a king, then it would be king, so maybe we should just call it monarch instead. Let me just go there and grab that. So yeah, the monarch is the head of state. Let me shove it over here because we're going to fill in more stuff underneath. Right, okay, so let's come back to that, which is the executive branch. We're going to come back to that in a mo. And we're going to go over to the legislative branch. What does legislative mean? Sorry that there are these long words. So executive means kind of in charge. And what does the legislative branch do? Does anyone know? And does anyone know what's inside the legislative branch? And H. Fisher is saying that the Queen could be the death of London. Yeah, I mean, the Queen can theoretically do whatever she wants, just she doesn't normally. Okay, so Angel is saying makes laws, and Max is saying makes laws as well. Exactly. So this branch is the one that makes all the laws. Okay, so... Right, here we go. So, yeah, the legislative branch makes all the laws. Megan's just saying, honestly can't wait to watch Charles do the surprise plot twist and declare war just so that he can be remembered for things. I actually think Prince Charles actually does so much good stuff for the environment. Like of all the people involved in the royal family, he's the one guy who just does so much good stuff for the environment. I think the royal family is a very strange thing, but yeah, Charles is at least actually does a load of positive stuff for the world. So I do think he's good in a lot of ways. Anyway, right, yeah. So the legislative branch contains Parliament. So obviously, you know, like the Houses of Parliament is the thing that you always see on TV when we're looking at central London, and I mean, most people know this, but what is the name of the clock tower that is on the side of the House of Parliament? What is the name of the clock tower? And I'm just going to draw Parliament like this, and then at the side we'll put the clock tower. What is it called? Max is saying Elizabeth Tower. Cheeky, yeah, okay, it was a trick question. The tower is called the Elizabeth Tower. It's actually, Big Ben is the name of the bell inside. So Big Ben is the name of the huge bell that rings when the clock strikes. But it's actually called the Elizabeth Tower. Or the Tower of the Palace of Westminster. Anyway, okay, so yeah, that is so we're inside Parliament. Now, in Parliament, there are two chambers or two houses. What are those two main chambers called? What do you guys reckon? H. Fisher saying that they live in the UK but get bored just looking at the Queen. What do you mean? How can you get bored looking at the Queen? Look at her. Look at her enjoying that haka. Look at her smile. Yeah, to be fair, the Queen doesn't really kind of say very much, but it's difficult being the Queen because, you know, she has to be all like polite all the time. So Angel saying that they live in the UK as well, and all her friends are in love with the royals. Yeah, lots of people are really obsessed with the royals. Anyway, we're going to talk about how weird that is in a mo. Okay, so yeah, I'm seeing some stuff coming in. So Jemiah's saying the Commons and the House of Lords. Kieran actually said the House of Representatives and the Senate, which is what you would have in the US. So in the US, they've basically done a very similar system, but they've got rid of the head of state being the Queen, and they've got an elected president instead. But otherwise, their system's really similar. Anyway, I'll focus on the UK. So in the UK, you've got the House of Commons, which we'll put there, and you've got the House of Lords. Commons. And the House of... Oh. In fact, you know what? I want this to be bigger. Give me just a sec. I'm just going to elongate the Houses of Parliament, give it the extension that it's always wanted, because it's too small. I'll put the House of Lords down here. Okay, who sits in the House of Lords? Who is in the House of Lords? Okay, so Miz is asking, are they the same thing? So you have I always forget the names, but in the United States you have the House of Representatives and the Senate, which are both inside, there's one other word which I always forget, which is maybe the building as a whole. But I can't remember the names off the top of my head, actually. If someone can remind me of those three names that I'm thinking of from the US, that'd be great. Yeah, what is that other word for the... Oh, it's going to really annoy me now for the US. Congress, that's it. Yes, Congress. Okay, so Congress is the whole building. So Congress would be the Parliament in the US, and then they have the Senate and the House of Representatives, which are like the Commons and the Lords. But all of those both of those houses are elected, and obviously the head of state is elected as well. So it's a different system. Anyway, in the UK we have this quite mad system where in the Lords we have basically like a load of lords, and it's bizarre. You've got a system where it's full of lords, ladies, peers. So that's people who've been like made into lords and ladies during their careers. You've got religious leaders. You've got like military representatives. It's like it's an absolute it's a big mix of people who sit inside the House of Lords, and it's kind of weird. Anyway, I'm just going to put them all here for now. Yeah, these are the people who sit inside the House of Lords. Now, a lot of people get very upset about this because these people aren't elected, and I'm going to talk more about that as well and how that works. First question is Ben saying hello. Hi Ben, hope you're doing okay. It must be late in New Zealand. Right, so the first question is, which house is more powerful? So one of these houses is called the upper house, and the other one is called the lower house. Now, for those who don't know, the House of Commons is where all the members of Parliament are, MPs. So those are the people you recognise from like the TV. So you'll have like the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats. They'll all sit in the House of Commons. That's the one you always see like on the TV and always talked about. So which one is the upper house? And Max is saying, aren't there like experts and professors in the House of Lords as well? So I think there are some people like that who've been considered to be like very good academics who are then invited into the House of Lords, but also the House of Lords will do lots of consultations where they'll speak to experts as well. And Jace's asking how long are the terms in the House of Lords. So there are no terms. There are no terms. If you become a member of the House of Lords, then I believe you just stay there for the rest of your life. Which is kind of crazy. Anyway, so the upper house is the House of Lords. So the House of Lords is theoretically the more powerful house, and then the House of Commons is theoretically the lower house, which seems strange because we always associate the powerful people in the country, like the Prime Minister and so on. They'll do all their debates in the House of Commons. So I'm going to come back to it's kind of weird. This whole thing is really weird, but actually it's the weirdness that makes it work, which is bizarre, but that's what I'm going to try and explain. So what you've got in the House of Commons is you've got the ruling party. So at the moment that's the Conservatives, who'll all sit on their benches, and you might have heard these people talking about front benchers and back benchers. And the front benchers are basically the people who sit on the front benches, and they're the people who agree with their own party the most. And so they're the people who we're part of the Conservatives and we agree with everything the people in charge of the Conservatives want, pretty much. And then you'll have the back benchers who will sit at the back, and they're the people who are part of the Conservatives but actually don't agree with everything and might sometimes vote against the Conservatives. And then on the other side of the house, so on the other side of the corridor, you have what? Who sits on the other side of the house? And I've got the colours the wrong way around here. H. Fisher's saying they went to the House of Commons once and there were loads of microphones dangling from the ceilings. That one hit their eye. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And Miz is saying the other team. Pumpkin Master is saying Labour, and Max is saying Labour Party mostly. So on the other bench is the opposition. So it's the responsibility of the second biggest party when an election comes around to sit on the opposite bench over there and argue back against the ruling party. And then what you'll have over here is the kind of side benches where you'll have other parties that will sit, like the Green Party and the Liberal Democrats and so on. And then you'll also have the Speaker, who's supposed to be a neutral person who will then control the debate. And what happens in the House of Commons is everybody debates stuff. Things go people make proposals. So for example, I was chatting to Caroline Lucas, who was trying to who's the Green MP in the UK, and she was trying to get a bill through for improving the reforesting plans in the UK, among other things. It was part of this big thing called the Green New Deal, and so she proposes this bill, and then it comes to the Commons, and everyone debates it, and everyone has their piece, and everyone chats about it. I say chats; it's usually pretty feisty the debate, and then people vote on it. And if it's voted as a law, then it doesn't immediately become a law. What happens to it once something is approved in the House of Commons? So someone comes up with a new idea, and that new idea might be something like, make all dogs illegal. Make all the dogs illegal. They're all going to be illegal now. And let's say for some mad reason that everyone in the House of Commons votes it through. What happens to it then? And Angel's asking, how strong is the Green Party? So the thing is, I'll just talk about fringe parties very quickly. So the way the system works is that generally we have a couple of dominant parties who tend to kind of vie against one another. And you wouldn't expect a party like the Green Party to ever come into power, but it actually maybe doesn't matter that much, and it's still very important to vote for parties like that if you believe in them, because what the bigger parties do is they look and they're like, whoa, the Green Party got so many votes this year, so if we take on the views of the Green Party for our bigger party, we'll get more votes as well. And so you should always ignore this rubbish when people say, oh, you should only vote for one of the two biggest parties, because it is a load of rubbish. You should always just vote for the parties you believe in. I vote Green all the time because I know that people will look at the stats and be like, lots of people are voting for Green, we should have more Green policies. And we just have one Green MP who sits in Parliament, and she is amazing for making sure that Green ideas are considered as much as she can, and she's such a fighter. And she's always voted in by Brighton. Brighton's a town in the south of the UK, for those who don't know, and without Brighton repeatedly voting her in, this country would not be as green as it is. And this country has still got a long way to go in terms of being green, but she is very important. Anyway, so Jasmine's saying that she forces her parents to vote Green. Great work. Okay, so yes, you guys were saying that the law then goes to the upper house. It doesn't go via the Queen. It does not go via the Queen. So it goes straight. So once the law is voted through, it goes to the upper house. Now, here's the really bizarre bit, and this is why the upper house is totally weird, but kind of works. Right, so first I want to get people's opinion. What do you think? Do you think it is a good thing or a bad thing that we have this upper house that's full of like lords and ladies whose families just happen to have been like in the UK for many hundreds of years as powerful people? And do you think it's right to have like these people who made life peers because they happen to have set up a really good business, or maybe because they've, maybe a lot of times very positive thing, they've contributed a big thing to the country? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing to have the House of Lords? Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of who is the guy that used to scream order? Yeah, that was John Bercow. So he's the speaker. So there's a speaker in the House of Commons who helps to guide the debate, who's supposed to be neutral and moves the debate around to stop anyone from talking too long. Although there's this other mad thing in Parliament, just before I go to the House of Lords, where if people want to avoid a law being voted on, then there's this thing called filibustering, where you can just carry on speaking, and as long as you continue speaking and it continues to make sense and you're not repeating the same words, then no one is allowed to interrupt you. And so some people, if they don't want laws to be passed, and they think they will be passed if they don't, will just stand up in the House of Commons and they'll just speak continuously. And some people are amazingly good at it, and it's a really horrible thing. But they basically just filibuster the entire law so that it can't get through, and they just stop it ever going to vote by just talking out all of the time that's available for it. Madness. Anyway, Jasmine saying loves that guy. Okay, where are we going? So, lots of people are saying basically no to the House of Lords and saying it's a bad idea. Right. Okay. So I'm not going to tell you like a for or against the House of Lords. I'm just going to tell you why it works as it is, so that you can then factor that in. So the thing about the House of Lords is that most people in the UK hate the idea of the House of Lords. Like, hate the idea that there's this unelected house that controls loads of stuff. And it makes sense, right? This is a weird situation for things to be in. And so yeah, most people in the UK don't like this. And so what this means is that if the people in this house ever make really major decisions that go strongly against what the people of the UK would want, then the media will grab hold of it, and they'll be like, House of Lords has voted to make all dogs illegal. And everyone will be like, what the hell? Who are these lords? Who are these lords and ladies who think they're so great, who have made all the dogs illegal? And within like a matter of a very small amount of time, the UK public will just close down the House of Lords. There'll just be a massive uproar, and everyone will be like, we don't want these lords and ladies like ruling things, right? So actually it's really important that people don't like the House of Lords, because it's the idea of the House of Lords, because it's kind of an important factor of how it works. So the law comes here, and then the House of Lords has to make a decision. Do we just approve the law and then it becomes a law? Or do we send it back to the House of Commons saying, we don't really like this, so we need you to adapt certain things? And that's their choice. And if they decide to block something that would be really good for the country, then there's going to be media uproar and the House of Lords will be torn apart. And if they decide to put something through that could be really bad for the country, that hasn't had a massive majority vote it through in the Commons, then there'll also be a massive uproar. So actually, the House of Lords is in this really weird position where it can only really do quite small things, because otherwise people will be like, no, the House of Lords is kind of thinking it's too powerful. It can only do quite small things, and it can only really do things that are quite positive for the country. Otherwise, it will risk its own existence. So that's a really important concept to get hold of about why the House of Lords exists and why it actually works in this weird balance between people disliking it and actually working. So, for example, there was a point when the Conservative government tried to vote through a lot of internet surveillance so they could basically watch everyone on the internet a lot more easily. And that was one time that the House of Lords were like, well, actually, this is going to be really bad for the general public, and we think it'd be really bad for the country as well, so they sent it back to Parliament. And there wasn't anyone at that point being like, oh, we hate the House of Lords for doing that. If anything, people were like, the House of Lords is actually doing a good thing. So anyway, that's why there is this weird... I'm seeing a little bit of bufferation. Yeah, turn off low latency if it's buffering, but I don't know why it's buffering mine. Maybe it's because... Let me send one message. Yeah, you guys are right. It's buffering mine as well. Give me 1 second before I carry on while I try and sort out the slowness. Okay, it looks to me that the internet is like coming back on my end again. So yeah, let me know if it keeps buffering, but I think we are. Ah. Okay, I'm gonna crack on. My internet is going up and down a little bit, so someone else on my end must be using loads of internet. So I've just sent a text around to tell everyone to stop, and hopefully that'll sort it out. Okay, so carrying on. So yeah, how much oversight is there on the House of Lords? Well, not too much oversight in that, often the House of Lords is quite boring because they just approve stuff. Because even though they're technically more powerful, they don't push back because of the pressure from the press. But often, they will be scrutinised if they're making a big decision and that will force them to make a more positive decision. Okay, so that's Parliament, and that's how laws get made. And then once laws get made, that goes off to a body called the Civil Service, that you might have heard of. And the Civil Service basically makes sure all the oh, sorry, no, that's not the Civil Service. Civil Service is coming later. Got things in the wrong order. Ignore me. Anyway, the laws get made by these two houses. Right, so where does the Prime Minister fit into this? Where does the Prime Minister go? Like, what branch is the Prime Minister in? What do you guys think? And Angel is saying it's a weird system, but it seems to be beneficial. That's the thing, is that like, the reason why I've done this live, even though most of my stuff is on like science, is because the system of power is kind of like an evolving like animal. Really, it's like it started off with just a head of state, and then someone added the upper house of the parliament, and then someone added the lower house, and then all these things keep being added one by one, and it's like an evolving animal where each thing is added to slightly counterbalance the last thing and try and make the other thing slightly better, and so on. And even though it seems mad, it works. And often when systems are designed in a way that's too simple, they're too easy to corrupt. And actually, it's the very simple systems that sometimes fall apart. And whilst the UK system is bizarre, it actually is very strongly resilient to outside pressure. So I'll talk to you about that as well in a second. Okay, so lots of people are saying that the Prime Minister sits in the legislative branch, and that is true, that the Prime Minister will head up the front bench of the party that's in charge, but also the Prime Minister sits over here. So there's something else which people often get confused, and it's something that people often get annoyed about, when people confuse Parliament and government. So over here is government, and the government is actually different to Parliament. And Dylan's saying, sounds like whoever owns the media gets a large say on what is criticised, and that is exactly right, which is why a free and open press is so important, and why we're lucky to have some quite good open press here. And the press is not as open as it should be and as it could be, but the more open the press is, the better, and it's always important to fight for an open press. Anyway, so the government sits here, and it's kind of partly it's what happens is every time there is a general election, so every time there's a vote, the party that wins the biggest share of power, so the biggest number of seats in the House of Commons in Parliament, is allowed by the Queen to form a government. And so the government will contain the Prime Minister, who we'll just put down as the PM, and then the Prime Minister will have the Cabinet. And the Cabinet is the group of top people from the party who will be the ministers for certain things. So you'll have, for example, the Transport Minister, and you'll have different people in the Cabinet will be like the Health Secretary, the Foreign Secretary, who'll be in charge of like international relationships, and then you'll have the Chancellor of the Exchequer, which will be the person in charge of the budget and all that kind of stuff. Now, all of these people sit inside this thing called the Cabinet. Can anyone mention, I always find it hard to remember, can anyone mention any other people inside the Cabinet? Here we go. It blows my mind how much the media can sway things as big votes as big as votes. Yeah, you guys should all watch the movie called The Great Hack if you want to see how easy it is to sway votes. It's absolutely mental. Oh yeah, the Home Secretary. That's another great idea for one of the ministers that would for one of the people who would be inside the cabinet. So these are basically the day-to-day people who run the country, and the reason why you need these people is because the Parliament is quite slow. You know, it's quite slow to react in that they have to write a white paper, they have to chat about it, they have to like schedule a vote, and then they have to get it voted through the upper house, and the upper house might throw it back, and these things can take a long time. Whereas a lot of stuff in ruling a country needs to happen very quickly, and so basically the Queen, who I talked about before, is essentially in charge of the country, gives to the government something called the royal prerogative. Does anyone know what the royal prerogative is? Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary, yes. Yeah, does anyone know what the royal prerogative is? Royal prerogative is. I'm just going to switch to Rayed. Okay, so Leonard's saying nope. Yeah, the royal prerogative. Okay, maybe we'll just get a load of nopes. So the royal prerogative is basically the Queen saying to the government, you can have my power. So for this term that you've been elected for, you can have my power, and anything that you choose to do, I will automatically, without you even having to talk to me about it, I will automatically agree to make the thing that's going to happen like immediately. So even though it's only the Queen in theory who has the power to go to war, in fact it's now it then becomes the Prime Minister's power. So the Prime Minister can make that instant decision, and without even having to consult the Queen on anything, they can just be like, right, we're doing this, and then it just happens via the royal prerogative. And so the government is actually part of the executive branch. So the government, even though the Prime Minister sits in the legislative branch, the Prime Minister also effectively acts as the president as well, as the executive as well, as the head of state. So even though the Prime Minister is not the head of state, the Prime Minister acts as the head of state. Right, okay, so, but they're drawn from here, as I was saying. They come from the ruling party. Starting to look complicated, right? Okay, so next I want to talk to you about why it is, like, more defences that stop this from falling apart. What happens if the government decides to go totally crazy and make loads of crazy laws, like let's make all the dogs wear shoes every single day? What would happen if the government started pumping out loads and loads of crazy laws? And Max is saying, isn't it kind of undemocratic for one person to be in two sections of the shared power? And yeah, well, maybe. This is how it works. But the question is, what happens if the government goes crazy? What can be done? And so Lily's saying the Queen can take it back, and that is not what happens, because you would never actually... Ooh, a message. You would never actually see... you would never see the Queen taking back any power, because you never see the Queen actually doing anything which would... As soon as the Queen tries to do something controlling, again there'll be public uproar, because the Queen should not take any part in this, because she's had no part of the democratic kind of election process at all. Okay, so Safronica's saying, would other countries step in? So maybe, yeah. I mean, if the UK government went totally mad, you might have other countries that would be like, whoa, 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 whoa. But that would essentially be an act of war if another country steps in. And then Digmeister is saying, yeah, in theory, the Queen in Denmark could also take the power back, but doesn't because of the backlash. Kieran's saying that our Governor General has the power to dissolve Parliament. So, well, what would happen if the government overstepped its power and and basically started going crazy? Then Parliament could vote to dissolve the government. So there could be a vote of no confidence, because Parliament is technically more powerful than the government, but just moves a lot more slowly. And so that's why the government has to be careful, because the government can always make laws. The government could just make a law just like that if they wanted to. But the problem is that if it goes against what Parliament would vote for, it will be embarrassing, and it will look really bad, and it will start to erode the power and trust that people have in the government, because the government will just be making all these laws that a few weeks later Parliament will just be like, no, we're going to vote for the opposite of that because we're the elected body and that's what we want. So the government always has to strike a balance of like, if a decision needs to be made quickly, we will make it and we will get it put into law immediately. But they shouldn't do too much, because otherwise Parliament will start to get annoyed with them and could pull the government apart. On the other hand, as a lot of people have seen, the government also has the power to pause Parliament, put it on pause. Anyway, right, I am starting to see that I am running out of time, and I really don't want to go over the next 5 minutes. So I'm just going to really, really quickly tell you about the judicial branch as well. My internet has stopped working. What on earth is going on? This is really worrying. Why has the internet stopped? Guys, give me 1 second to investigate what's going on with the internet. I will be back in 30 seconds. The internet has just absolutely stopped working on the internet. Give me 1 minute. Oh, thanks, Veronica, for saying it's a cool plan to the background. Okay, you can hear me, but I think the internet's going super slow, my end, and I don't know why. I can't figure it out, because actually nothing's changed. I wonder if it's to do with the rainstorm, because actually my internet's coming in through the window. Okay, I'll tell you what, I've got an idea. Okay, right, I'll try and finish it off, but I think it's going to be quite laggy till the end, because I think it's to do with this rainstorm that's going on, which is kind of mad. Or in fact, you know what? I'm just going to finish it here, and I'll come back to this another time, because otherwise we'll find out about the judicial branch another time. But yeah, do come. So tonight at 6 p.m. we've got Hannah's live, which I think is on Do Borders Really Exist? And then tomorrow I'm going to be back as well with yeah, it's in and out. It's in and out, guys. I'm really sorry. So yeah, tomorrow I'm going to be back with how to commit fraud and get away with it. How to commit fraud and get away with it. That's tomorrow. And also tomorrow we've got, I think it's called Love Poetry and How It Will Ruin Your Life. And that's in the morning. But check out the calendar, which you'll find on aimhigh.co. Aimhigh.co. I'm gonna, for those who can catch this, I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna try and finish this another day because my internet's going super bad. RIP Matt's internet. Yeah, sorry guys. But yeah, aimhigh.co, and also do please follow us online. I'm gonna bail out now while the internet has gone absolute bananas my end. But thanks so much for coming, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Check the timetable